Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, December 22nd. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories from the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. Some non-tribal residents of the Fort Hall Reservation are concerned about the Shoshone-Bannock tribe's proposal for a subsurface sewage disposal system ordinance. Tribal officials say the ordinance would regulate the design, construction, placement, and abandonment of systems on the reservation. They say it's meant to protect the environment and the health of the tribes and people in the reservation area. Non-tribal residents of the reservation say their property is already regulated through the county. The Idaho State Journal reports that representatives from Bingham and Power counties in the cities of Blackfoot, Chubak, and Pocatello attended a public meeting last week to discuss the issue and their concerns. Riverton, Wyoming is participating in the Northern Arapaho Tribe's application for federal stimulus money to build an assessment facility for juvenile offenders south of the town. Riverton city officials agreed recently to oversee the $1 million grant for the tribe's proposed community assessment center, which would be open to multiple agencies with arrested juveniles. Tribal officials have dubbed the project the Prevention Through Intervention Campus. It would sit on 52 acres of tribal land and would provide a pre-court assessment services, detoxification, and medical examinations. They were Eskimos or Alaskan Indians when they left their homes to go to the Indian school or hospital in Puyallup, Washington lands in the early 20th century. Of the sick, many passed away before they arrived at the reservation. Those that survived are now growing old and dying, and the Puyallup tribe is trying to record their stories before it's too late. Starting in the 1860s, natives from Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska came to the Puyallup Reservation to attend Cushman Indian School. In the 1920s, the school was converted to a regional hospital that treated natives up until the 1960s. There is only one living member of the Puyallup tribe who went to the school or hospital. That's why the tribe is searching for anyone who can tell them more about what happened there, and so far they are yet to find a single Alaskan native to interview. Many Alaskans passed away on Puyallup lands. Most of the other tribal members were sent back to their families when they passed away, but Alaska natives were usually buried near the hospital, unattended by friends or relatives, without a headstone to name them, and the cemetery now is all that is left of the school in the hospital. Payments of at least $1,500 will go to the vast majority of American Indians participating in the long-running lawsuit against the federal government, and many will receive considerably more. It may not sound like much in the nation's capital, but for many recipients, the payment will feed a family for a few months. Eloise Cobell of Browning, Montana, has urged senators to quickly sign off on a $3.4 billion settlement that would bring a partial remedy to hundreds of thousands for the government's mismanagement of Indian trust lands. The Interior Department manages about 56 million acres of land. It leases the land for mining, grazing, and oil and gas production. It also collects money from those leases and distributes it to more than 384,000 individual Indian accounts and about 2,700 tribal accounts. In the lawsuit, the plaintiffs said the government had breached its responsibility to manage assets belonging to American Indians, and that if it refused to fix a flawed accounting system that then led to billions of dollars being lost without explanation. And in our continuing discussion on the National Health Bill and legislation, here's a short update with Shoshone-Bannock Tribal Mark Trahant, who is covering the issue for 1 year as a Kaiser Media Fellow. And there was some news as they locked up 60 votes to help get the bill out of the Senate here in the near future. We'll try to get an update squeezed in here with Mark Trahant. My understanding is Monday night they got the technicalities out of the way by preventing a filibuster. 60 votes to allow the debate to be closed so there cannot be a filibuster. What other technical things do you see going on in the Senate now to push this bill through?
Well, the Senate should go through. They've got a series of test votes that'll go between now and Christmas Eve, and they should have 60 votes for all of those. At that point, it's called the manager's bill, will be moved forward, and that's what they'll vote on Christmas Eve. The important thing for Indian country is the manager's bill includes the entire Indian Healthcare Improvement Act.
Okay, and so this is now titled the manager's bill, essentially. What they're pushing through is the Senate is something that's going to hold 60 votes.
Right. It's he's basically rewritten as a manager's amendment, and it's basically the bill that came from the House rewritten for the Senate. And it should hold 60 votes. At that point, once the Senate passes, they'll have to go to a conference committee and iron out details with the House. And that's where it gets pretty thorny, because the issue of abortion and some of the other issues are still unresolved with the House.
I see. And the last two holdouts coming on board, one of them included a senator from Montana and Joe Lieberman.
Senator from Nebraska.
Senator from Nebraska, who, by the way, apparently got lots of goodies tucked into the bill in order to get his vote. And
he got an extent.
You got what?
There's a Medicaid provision, which means Nebraska won't have to pay its share of Medicaid funds for a while.
I see. But they've got him on board. If this is preserved, and I think a lot of people are just beginning to understand to some extent the whole political process of give and take, if they can get this through the Senate by Christmas, it doesn't mean that it's a bill yet. It's still got to go back to the House to be reconciliated, doesn't it?
Correct. It would do that, and they'll try to come up with a compromise language, particularly on abortion and the so-called public option. Those are the two big differences with the House. But there's a couple of other pretty substantive ones, one involving a commission on Medicare. And if they can reach a compromise on that, then they will try again for 60 votes in the Senate.
Okay. So at this particular point, all the provisions that would assist Indian country are included in the Senate bill.
Right. It's an excellent bill for Indian country.
And you don't see any reason why that wouldn't survive the process in the House?
Well, no, this is the good part. Because the House has the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act and the Senate has the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act, it will be not an item for conference.
Okay, so actually that would make it safe. Makes it safe. Okay, good. What else do you anticipate once this gets back into the House? Do you see a lengthy process over on that side if it gets through the Senate?
Well, the big problem they have in House, and this is really the same thing that killed the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act 2 years ago, is they've got to come up with a coalition on the abortion issue. The folks who are anti-abortion rights think this bill doesn't go far enough. They want the restrictive language that's in the House. A very large group of pro-choice Democrats in both the House and the Senate say if that happens, they won't vote for it. So somehow to find common ground in that is going to be the test.
Right. My understanding is at this point that we're losing people on the abortion issue on the right side, and we're losing people on the left having to do with the public option. And does Pelosi going to need to hold those together to bring the bill through on the House side?
She needs to hold, she needs to get a majority. She had a few votes to spare last time, but not very many.
It's pretty tight. Okay, thanks, Mark, for reporting in. We'll keep in touch with you as this go along. There's been a lot of people that have appreciated your analysis on this bill.
Happy to help.
All right, thanks.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank all of you for joining with us again. Come again soon. Miigwech.